So the Mayor's just been slightly delayed. He will be here any second probably, so we'll kick it away. So what we're going to do now is we've got resolutions 3 and 4 that have been moved and seconded by the Mayor and Deputy, and we will debate those and then we'll put them to the vote. And then we'll go through to 5, 6, 7, 8, which has also been moved and seconded, and we'll debate and move those. Sarah.
Sorry, can someone move a motion if they're not in the room?
They'd moved them before recess. You moved them before the recess.
When he began the meeting.
Before it was adjourned. You moved it before we adjourned. Do we need a... Yeah. Before we adjourned.
This was back on the...
Yeah.
And this is now the standard. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to confirm, this is a substantive of 3 and 4, which incorporates all the code amendments, and this was moved and seconded by the Mayor and Deputy Mayor on the 14th of February. So this is the substantive motion to that.
Cool. Could we put it to the vote, though, if the mover just wasn't in the room at the time? Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be back by then.
Do the debate.
It's an hour of debate.
Yeah, we can.
It's a good hour of debate.
Yes, it can.
He's going to be 2 minutes away, so we can start the debate.
So, yeah, just reminding people we'll have 2 debates. The first one is basically on the LTP itself. The second one will be on the consultation document. There's no obligation to debate both of them if you don't feel like it. It's totally up to you, and for how long we speak. You have 3 minutes. So we will begin, as the Mayor indicated, that we will start with Councillor Johansson and crisscross the chamber like that. So.
You'd say the debate on the LTP or on the consultation document?
LTP.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that there's been a lot of work go into the LTP, but I think I'm just really struggling around where our priorities are. And for me, one of the really obvious things in the community is that we've got a massive amount of broken infrastructure that still hasn't been fixed after the earthquake. And I'm very concerned that we are taking a lot longer than we should to do the renewals. I think it was really unfortunate after the earthquake that the council strategy didn't match the central government strategy. And what that meant is we stopped doing renewals because we thought that the repair program would actually renew a lot of the infrastructure that was damaged. Instead, what we got was patch repairs. And now what we're seeing is that those patch repairs, some of them are coming to the end of their useful life, have not done a really good job at giving a renewal, and it's costing us a fortune in terms of reactive maintenance. There's roads in my area where we've actually done what I would call operational maintenance or operational resurfacing, but actually it's actually made the condition of the road worse, because actually what needs to happen is the road actually needs a full renewal, and I'm increasingly concerned that we don't have sufficient budget on to do those renewals, which is meaning that it's a false economy. While it might look good in the short term in terms of the impact on the rates, actually long term what it does is create a massive infrastructure backlog that will be very, very difficult to catch up with. On top of that, I also remain deeply troubled that the priority again is around things like the massive assets that we have. And if I take the stadium for example, it seems to me that there needed to be a lot more work done to reduce one of the single biggest costs that we were faced with, that ratepayers were having to pick up the burden of, rather than getting a whole bunch of other ways to fund that massive cost. And it's frustrating that it just feels like that work has not been done. We spent a whole bunch of time going down an asset sales program where I repeatedly asked what work was being done to address the things that were causing us the biggest cost, and get repeatedly told that that wasn't part of the scope of the review. But it seems to me, from a sensible point of view, we should actually be trying to focus on the things that are creating a massive cost and looking at what we can do to reduce that cost. And I just feel like we haven't done that enough as part of this process. I also remain concerned that the program level budgets are too hard for the community to be able to give feedback on. And I don't know how we're going to prioritise projects within our local communities if people cannot get visibility of the 5 or the 10-year program of work. So there's a lot of good stuff in here. There's a lot of things that I don't agree with, but at this stage, I'm very much concerned about the content of the LTP.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kewen, please.
Just before I speak, Mr Mayor, as the mover, weren't you going to go first? So do you want to do that now? Because then you've still got a right of reply. So I'm just
I'm happy to go last. I'm happy.
with no right of reply. Okay. Just.
I'll do it twice.
Okay, no problems.
Thank you very much.
As far as the LTP goes, I hope that this is the one LTP where the public come in and tell us how not to spend money. Yes, a lot of work's been done, but I don't think enough work by the table has been done to reduce the costs for people that live in our city. The rate rise is truly unacceptable. When we get to once we've heard from the people of Christchurch and we get to the final sign-off of the LTP, I hope that I'll have a mandate to vote with the people of my ward, and it won't be supporting a double figure rates rise. I'm looking for them to come in asking for a single figure rate rise, which I would look to support. I'm not saying how I'm going to vote, because that would be predetermination. Might as well just go home now, because I won't be allowed to vote then. So what I'm saying is I'm willing to listen to people, but it's really hard for me or some of my fellow councillors to make a case if those people don't speak up. Don't come and whinge to me at the supermarket in 6 months' time, or at a party, or the library or somewhere, complaining about how much your rates are, because your rates are about to go up, and by the biggest amount you've probably ever seen in your life, because rates are also compounding. So when they go up now, it's like an arc. It just keeps growing. I own a small business with a friend of mine in a Power Road where we lease a paddock, and the rates on that paddock are $12,000 a year. And when and we don't get much for that. There's a road that goes by, funded by the government, but we don't even have rubbish bins, and we pay $12,000 a year for rates on blank land that we did all the work on. That's going to go up by $1,500. So we're small business owners that are going to lose $1,500 a year. For what? We feel like we're going backwards or just treading water. Now, every household across the city is going to feel the same way. So I'm asking them to come out and tell us where this document is right and where it's wrong. We'll hear from some that say it's right, but I want to hear from the ones that think it's wrong, because I truly believe they're a silent majority. They never speak up because they think they don't get listened to. But in fairness to my fellow councillors here, I actually believe this time around everyone at this table will listen to them, and if enough of them speak up. But if they don't speak up, they will be a lost voice over the next 3 years, leading into the way we spend money for 10 years. Our spending, along with the government spending, is driving inflation, because when we set a budget that's well above the rate of inflation, that just keeps pushing inflation. It's basic mathematics. And so if we sign off something above the rate of inflation, we are hurting people and driving that even further.
Thank you. Councillor Donovan, please.
To the disappointment of everybody, I'm going to keep this short. So I think, the elephant in the room is climate change. This is the key issue we should be facing up to. This is a long-term plan that we should be developing, and the cost of inaction is huge. We know that one of the most expensive events per capita was Cyclone Gabrielle, and by ignoring investing into our infrastructure to adapt for the future, we will be paying for this cost. It just might not be the cost will then come on communities that have to face the kind of impacts of our own infrastructure. The other key issue for me is making sure that we as a city move forward and we don't leave anyone behind. So this week we marked 13 years since the earthquakes that devastated the city, and we've seen some great progress across the city, and I think in particular the central city's really gone ahead. At the same time, we have to acknowledge the fact that there's still a significant amount of work that we have to prioritise, and at the risk of sounding like a broken record, we all know that there are some significant projects that still haven't been delivered. One of those, of course, is Pages Road Bridge, which will provide an opportunity for people not only to escape from the area in the event of tsunami, but it also is about addressing the impacts of climate change by raising the road to reduce the impacts of flooding. So when we look at this long-term plan, I don't want to be getting caught up in conversations about things such as where can we make cuts and this sort of false argument about sort of fiscal prudence, because really what we're ignoring is that the costs will come down on this council one way or the other. So moving forward, I want to make sure that there's some equity in terms of how we're looking at this plan. We need to get some of that work completed. That needs to be done as soon as possible, and that needs to be included in this budget, including for Pages Road Bridge. We need to make sure that we deliver on our cycleway network. We don't have one out to New Brighton currently. It's not about different wards, but it is about making sure that the network itself is completed so that people have transport choices across the city. And we need to prepare for climate change. So the twin impacts of the earthquakes and climate change mean that those impacts will be compounded in areas. We know that with the subsidence, that climate change is occurring in some areas twice as fast as we expected. Parts of the Banks Peninsula are particularly at risk, but there is risk faced across the city, as we've seen with the fires. So these conversations should be front and centre of every conversation that we have on this budget moving forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes from here.
Thank you. Councillor Moore, please.
Thank you. Just seen a few different plans over the years in their consultation documents, and I've always felt like the same mistake has been made each time, where we don't put clear options in front of the public to be able to give, for them to be able to give us an idea on how to increase or decrease rates. Obviously, we're here to represent the public, and it is so importantly see what those options are, so they can give us a meaningful submission on what they want to see us do. And a number of councils are doing this with their documents this year. There's a question that we ask each year. This year it'll be, what do you think about a 13.24% rate rise? Well, we're going to get a lot of profanities in the response to that. I feel like we know what people are going to say to that, and they'll tell us, get it lower. But how do we get it lower? That's 13.24%. The guts of it is made up of inflation, increased insurance costs, and te kaha. So cuts will have to be found to be able to make savings. Where do the savings come from? They need to be laid out in front of the public so they can tell us which savings they might have an appetite for. The other question, are there any areas where you feel we should be reviewing the level of service we provide in order to manage our costs? I imagine we will get plenty of suggestions, many of them should be quite good, but it feels like we're asking the public in many ways to do our job for us. Every election we talk about going line by line through the budget to find savings, and the public are going to be wondering, well, where is it and how do we see it? This is our public consultation document, let's see it, I want to have my say and know what our options are. And dozens upon dozens of savings were ruled out, whereas I believe they should have been laid out for the public to see in this consultation document. We do this once every 3 years. We should be able to talk about them meaningfully and rule them out if the public don't have the appetite for them. There's a perception that these consultations are a waste of time to the public because council does what it wants anyway. The thing is, that's not true. We make changes to these plans all the time. We make changes, amendments to almost every decision we make as a result of what we hear from the public. So the truth is, we are always able to make changes and often do. The public need to have confidence that that is the case. In response to Councillor Barber's important points about sample size, I see it as up to us as councillors to get out into our communities, make sure people are being well and truly engaged, go visit all different places, demographics, make sure people are aware and that it's explained to them, because this is really hard for people to understand. A commitment's been made to refine the wording, which I very much appreciate. I think that's important and really good. And the engagement team, I think, have actually been on fire recently, putting together some amazing work. The What Matters Most, that was absolutely phenomenal. And I've got full confidence that Katie and the team will do an amazing job with whatever is put in front of them. I just need to be confident that what we are giving to the engagement team is the kind of document needed for a meaningful consultation. And I don't believe we've been able to deliver that. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Councillor Peters.
Thank you. This has been a long and arduous process. I'm sure we'd all agree with that. We've had many a session sitting around tables, workshopping, having lots of information put to us. I've certainly found it an arduous process. There was a lot of information dumped on us, particularly the newer councillors. We've expected to read, understand and hear piles upon piles of information. But it's been a process that we've steadily worked our way through. It's felt like drinking from a fire hydrant at times, but hey, we're ending here today to look at adopting a budget, or the draft thereof. I'm certainly going to be listening to my community when they come and submit, and I really do hope they submit in droves, because I know for myself and the average punter, be it in business or be it as a homeowner, 13.2%, it's huge. It's not as bad as some of our other councils around the country, but hey, 13.2 for anyone is going to cause a bit of pain. So I'm saddened that we didn't get a chance to really pull some levers hard and look at some levels of service to make some significant chunks and reductions in this number. Hopefully, as we go out and consult with our public, we'll be able to get enough options for them to be able to feed back to us what levers they'd like us to further look at pulling to try and get this down. Hearing the reference to cycleways from Councillor Donovan earlier, I'd like us to find a way of doing some of these smarter, perhaps cheaper, rather than going through with our massively expensive double concrete nibs everywhere. I'd like us to find ways to do it more cost effectively so we can get more of them, so we can get more people out and around the city, connecting around the city on their cycleways. I don't want to see us spending millions upon millions of millions on what I really see, is, and a lot of the public see it, as over-engineered cycleways. We need to try and trim our cloth and find smarter and cheaper ways to do things, particularly at this time when we're looking at, you know, double-digit rates increases. That scares the living daylights out of most of us. If we can get down to a single digit, I think after the consultation we'd be in a much better place, and the public would thank us for that. They'd expect us to try and get it down to there post the consultation. So what I really plead to the public is, do make sure you submit to us. Like Councillor Keown, we don't want to hear from you in 6 months' time if you haven't given us the feedback and told us that that was way too high and this is how I'd like to see you save some money. Give us your suggestions. Let us know what you're prepared to look at sacrificing to get your rates increased down, so that we can then hear from you and around this table make some wise decisions as to how we rate you to get what we need in the city.
Thank you, mate. Councillor McClellan.
Yeah, this is a really tough year. This is a tough LTP. Looking down the barrel of double-digit rate rises is not fun for anyone around this table, I'm sure. I hope everyone does vote to put this out for consultation today. I think it's not credible or sensible not to do so. I think we may not like the content of what we're dealing with, or all of the content, and we're all going to have different views on different aspects, but we really need to cover ourselves in glory and make sure that we at least pass a draft budget to talk to the public about. So that's kind of my plea to colleagues. One other thing I'll touch on, given there are two debates, is 10 Shirley Road. I think it's really unfortunate that Pauline's amendment didn't make it through at a prior meeting, because the community board have done a lot of work and actually spent quite a bit of money figuring out the best proposal to go there, and to have that funding not land in its right and natural place may mean that we end up having to do some of that work again, which would be a real shame given the negligible rating impact of having it sit in the early years. So yeah, I hope people come in and talk to us about that, and whatever else that they. I mean, I'm sure they'll come in and talk to us about the headline figure as well. I don't even have to ask them to do that, but yeah, thank you.
Do you want to say something? No. Councillor Harrison-Hunt, please.
I'm only going to be doing one debate today, and I don't usually write my debates, but I wanted to make this clear. And what's that? Yeah, singer normally. But there are some words that I thought about across this long-term plan process, and those words, hot words, are impact, affordability, transparency, levels of service, OPEX, CAPEX, te kaha, 15%, damage, clarity, significant, And my favourite one of all of them is unprecedented. I heard that so many times that it was unprecedented. Now, they're all words I've heard over the last 6 months, more than I've probably had breaths. And with these words, it conditions you to think within the box of local government. And in local government, semantics matter. If you don't hold the ability to navigate the local government language, your impact at council is weakened. If you don't know how to navigate the huge amount of documents, briefings and meetings, your impact is weakened. And thankfully, thanks to Lynn, thanks to Mary and the team, we got a crash course into the beast that is the Christchurch City Council and got up to speed, and not without its growing pains. But let me tell you what we're here for, and it's not about the ability to take in the vast amounts of information and utilise it. It's about our ability to do what we were elected here to do, which is communicate. And if I could be rather confident for a minute, I would say that we're very experienced communicators. We were put in the job to communicate, to connect, and to shape minds, young and old. And in light of that, I would talk about what potential we as elected members can do, and that is to go into all of our communities, to the businesses, to the ratepayers, to students, to renters, to young people, to our ethnic communities, and connect. Ask questions, be open-minded and clear. The public deserve an engaged member who loves a good yarn, a great coffee, and most of all, knows their stuff. Now, I'm hoping this in debate to add perspective for my colleagues and the public. And just this morning, I was on my way to work, and I was on the South Express, thanks to council, and I met some Aucklanders who were riding on their way into town, asking how to get into town. They said how much they loved the cycleway infrastructure and how open and clean the city was. It made me proud, but it also made me reflect on the economy that is perceived to be quite simple, yet multifaceted. The Aucklanders, for example, use our cycleways, use our footpaths and roads. They then pay money to the accommodation, food and entertainment providers, who then pay our rates. The renters pay the landlords, who then offset their rent to then pay our rates. The primary school aged children, who in 10 years' time inherit our decisions and infrastructure, will then be paying our rates. So would this council consider them ratepayers? I will, no matter what the layer is. The clear message lies. So I challenge myself and other elected members not to fall into the trap of hypocrisy. If you say we need to go down to 6%, then show the community how you do it. If you say I'll change this, then show the community how you do it. It's about transparency, openness and clarity, and wordplay is damaging. It grows gorse on the clear pathway forward. Lived experience matters. Sorry, Phil, I'll be another 10 seconds. Lived experience matters. And for someone who makes decisions like us, I believe that if I'm able to make decisions on cycleways, I should get on a bike. If I scrutinise the roads, I should walk, bike and drive on those roads. If we fund someone, then we should show up and see where our money is going. Nothing irks the public more than the uninformed and those that are hypocrites.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Barber, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this is obviously my first LTP, and I've seen up close that it's a very complicated balancing act. There's a lot that we have to deliver, but the overwhelming feeling I'm left with is, I guess, despair at the fact that we're going to rate our people an increase of 13.24%. Before I came into council, I thought that maybe 2 or 3% would be acceptable to most people in most years. It really concerns me. I mean, paying rates is not optional. We've basically got people by the short and curlies, and they know it. They have to pay their rates. If they go up 20%, they have to pay them. If they go up 30%, they have to pay them. It's like income tax. And I'm frustrated that we can't do more to help the average person in the street. I represent a really eclectic mix of socio-economic people, and I think that some people will really, really struggle. I get contacted relatively frequently by people concerned about rates increases, that it consistently goes up, and they don't really see the value or understand it. And coupled with that, I'm concerned that we haven't really pulled all the levers that we could have. We all know that CCHL's $2.2 billion in debt, that council itself is $1.6 billion in debt, and that in the last term we borrowed $440 million. And this is to reduce rates, to make it reasonable for people to pay for pieces of infrastructure that we need. But we can't keep on doing that year after year, because we're going to run out of capacity, I think, to continue to do that. A simple choice to reduce rates this time and for this hump would be to borrow more money. We could reduce rates substantially. We could easily have it under 10%, but there would be a cost down the track. And those are the sorts of decisions that we face. And I really hope that people speak up, that they actually take the time to complain or to let us know exactly how they feel about these things. But I'm actually not that confident that they'll do it. You know, the consultation document, I can't understand why it isn't something like multi-choice, really simple for people. There's a lot of information in there, and we're sort of hamstrung by the legislative requirements to put it all out there. So when you look at what matters, that only 4,000 people actually responded. That's less than or around 1% of our population. It's a bit disturbing. Is it because they don't care? I doubt it. It's because we're not really engaging properly. We're not getting across to the general public. And I see this all the time in my work with my residents. They totally misunderstand so many things, and a simple explanation often helps them. I get frustrated when I read the letters to the editor too. Some of them go unchallenged, and they're blatantly crazy, some of them. They really are. But there's no response from us, which is sad. So I feel like we're failing in our ability to communicate effectively with our residents.
Thank you, Kelly.
Cheers.
Thank you. Councillor Templeton, please.
Kia ora koutou. I'm concerned about our water, and that should come as no surprise. And so are our residents. It ranked second in what matters most, but with the highest number of residents voting for it at 83%. In 2018, the leakage rate from our pipes was 18%, and we had a target of getting it under 15%. It's now 8% higher at 27%, and our target is to get it under 25%. It's clearly unacceptable, and is why I put forward the amendment to change the target to being under 20% by 2030 and under 15% by the end of the 10-year plan in 2034. In past long-term plans, I've seen charts showing the condition of the network and even maps of where the worst condition pipes are. It's important to do the worst first, and to imply that we've not been doing so is disingenuous, as we know from the work of the old Three Waters Committee. Yet, we are proposing to spend around $30 million less on water supply than in the previous 10-year plan had indicated for this same time frame. And that's with the huge increases in construction costs in the last 3 years on top of it, effectively meaning that we will be delivering much less. And it's clear that this means that the network is likely to keep declining. Yes, we need to be reactive in fixing the leaks that are there, but business as usual renewals are essential, and they are much cheaper in the long term, and repairing pipes just before they break is much better for community and businesses than letting them fail before you fix them. 2 weeks ago, we lowered the rating impact for the first year of the LTP by 1.8%, by not making tough decisions and cutting any projects, but by deciding to borrow more money to fund basic infrastructure renewals rather than rating for it as we were planning. We've added $83 million more in debt over the life of the plan, but are getting no additional work done for that money. Deliberately spending more than we need to get the same work done, it's hardly fiscally prudent. In fact, while the headline rates figures may have gone from 15.8% to 13.2%, we have actually increased projects and net borrowing for the period by $277 million, increasing the 10-year cumulative rates increase and making future long-term plans more difficult for councils and for residents. This long-term plan has not been ideal. It's been mixed with a change in direction from central government on both water and transport, and with significant staffing changes. And for those who have stepped up to get us through to here, a sincere thank you. It has not been easy. A fully functioning and safe drinking water supply is the lifeblood of any city, and ours is creaking and leaking, and I've not seen a plan to fix it. It's only out of sight and out of mind until it's flowing down the street. This is not a more affordable long-term plan, and we can certainly not afford for our water infrastructure to get so bad that it fails. We have seen elsewhere the community and economic impacts of that, and so at this stage I'm unable to support this going out to the community in its current state.
Okie dokie. Councillor Scandrett, please.
Thank you. The number one thing that we're discussing today is really this document that's going out. And the two key things with this document are accurate information to the ratepayers of Christchurch and clarity to be able to read it. So we've heard people talking about percentages and favouritism and all that kind of thing, but I've said from the very start, I want to hear from the ratepayers of Christchurch. I chose not to put a single amendment in because I have listened to the one fact that has been through all this time, which hasn't moved, is a budget crisis for all. And that I've taken this on board. It may be that when we have our feedback from the public, and I hope it is from those that put their feedback into the residents' surveys, rather than those who already have an in with council with regards to knowing the processes and being regular users of this organisation, that they are all the residents of Christchurch, so we can get a real feel for what is most important to the ratepayers of Christchurch. And it may be that the percentage-wise, because nothing is free and we will never get perfection. So it may be that the percentage of the increase to the rates is higher than we would like, it may be a bit lower. But we need to get the information from our ratepayers, and all of them. I totally agree with regards to the Pages Road Bridge. That is an absolute key piece of infrastructure for a huge community. It's not just about car travel, it's about safety in the event of an emergency. So that is one thing I really support. But things change, and a good plan is a fluid plan. We've just recently had the second fire in the Port Hills. So I'm kind of thinking in the back of my head, maybe we'll get some really good feedback from ratepayers that it is more important now to look at climate change as a whole, as fires could affect the Port Hills, but also more isolated communities in Banks Peninsula, rather than putting all our emphasis, it seems, on coastal hazards. But that is for our ratepayers to feedback and tell us. I'm really looking forward to getting the feedback from our ratepayers and to see how accurate I have been with regards to their feelings with the budget crisis and what is truly important to them. Because I serve not only my community, but as councillors, we serve all of our city. And just following on from Mr. Councillor Harrison Hunt, all the people that I meet from outside of Christchurch seem to be more excited about Christchurch than some around this table. It is we are a leading city in this country, and we should celebrate that and thank our staff for helping us get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fields.
Thank you, and actually great words, Tim, because I think that it's important to note that this is the golden city of New Zealand that people want to move to. It's thriving, it's moving ahead. However, so this LTP is really about the 5 I's: inflation, interest, insurance, the infrastructure crisis, and I told you Te Kaha was going to cost a lot, but you wanted it, and we just have to knuckle down and pay for it. I'm disappointed we voted down additional funding for biodiversity last week, given that 45 minutes after we did that, the Port Hills was on fire. I hope councillors recognise the importance of supporting our climate objectives, because that stuff isn't going to go away. And if good planning and getting ahead of the curve at the expense of short-termism is not good governance, then I don't know what is. The people of Banks Peninsula, got to give a plug for Banks Peninsula of course, have signalled that the impact of climate change is by far the most important issue on the peninsula. In addition to that, we've got huge water infrastructure issues in Christchurch and on Banks Peninsula that several councillors have brought up in debate. And that needs to be fixed. And frankly, right now, I actually have no idea how those issues are going to be resolved. So I hope the government has some ideas, but I'm not holding out hope. Right now, the town of Akaroa is on level 2 water restrictions, and the drinking water supply is always at risk. And Akaroa, for God's sake, that is a world-class tourist destination, and it doesn't have a guaranteed safe drinking water supply. That's just not right. Yet, the people of Banks Peninsula, at least, will continue to be as innovative, productive and generous as ever in their land use and community activism. But our LTP is an opportunity to supercharge that, and I'm not sure if we've got that right at this stage. That said, Banks Peninsula represents an enormous economic opportunity for our whole city in so many ways. And I hope we collectively, as a council, have the vision to see that and to support it. So I look forward to our residents' responses to this draft, should it pass, because there will be many. Kia ora.
Thank you very much. Councillor Henstock, please.
Thank you. Like some of the others around the table, this is my first rodeo, my long-term plan rodeo. And to be fair, it's been frustrating, and I don't think it's been that great. I accept that there has been a lot of work done by staff, and I'd like to thank them for their time and their expertise and what they have done for us. But as councillors, we've spent endless hours at these tables and up in the Mayor's Lounge, and we've been spoken to, and we've had screeds and screeds of pages and charts and spreadsheets and PowerPoints. And to me, it doesn't seem as if we've spent enough time, enough constructive time, actually looking at the really chunky stuff that would have shifted the dial for us. So it feels as if we've just been tinkering around the edges to some degree. You heard my questions to staff earlier today about the reliability of some of their budget information that underpins the long-term plan, particularly insofar as it relates to transport. And that we've been told that some of the budgets are out of date, and transport's a really huge chunk of our budget. And when there's more than a reasonable expectation that some of our costs are going to be going up, then we really should have some provision for that. I don't have a great deal of confidence in some of the sums that are underpinning this, and I think it's going to be difficult for the public to actually have that confidence as well. We have to ask ourselves, have we got it right? Well, as elected members, we can't agree on what is right. And I think all I can do is acknowledge that what we've got is not perfect, but it is time now for people to have a say, and I really hope that they do. The rates burden is really real for our residents. As you've heard from some of the others, we're hearing from them time and time again, and we are expecting them to make some really tough decisions about their own household budgets. They'll be having to make some sacrifices, and I'm not convinced that we've made enough sacrifices ourselves. And like Councillor Barber, I'm really frustrated that we couldn't do more, and I'm going to find it difficult to support a double-digit rates increase. But to me, it feels like we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And whilst I've got concerns about the process we've used, the accuracy of some of the figures and our priorities, I accept that we have to strike a rate. That's the simplicity of what we've got today. So the net effect of not striking a rate is actually greater than the sum of all the parts that all of us have raised concerns about today. I think I'll leave that as my final point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Coker, please.
For me, the main issues with this LTP is the lack of future planning. I feel like we're leaving the tab for future generations to pick up, and there is a lack of transparency deep into our budgets. I agree with comments around the table on the order of priorities of projects and within programs, because we can't see them as they're hidden at program level, and that means the public can't see them. Regarding water infrastructure, we're told it's important to note that the funding allocated in the LTP does not aim to renew all assets before they fail, as Sarah's talked about. Such a comprehensive approach would be neither economically feasible nor practical. Renewals are meticulously identified and prioritised based on criticality, etc., etc., but replacement on many of them will occur only reactively after failure. So let that sink in. Isn't that how we get the situation that Wellington is facing? Doesn't this say we are purposely underfunding our water infrastructure, creating a future problem? Absolutely. On the subject of renewals, I do not agree with borrowing for some renewals to decrease rates in the short term, again as Sarah said, as it costs us millions of extra dollars over the next 30 years for no extra renewals being completed, again leaving the bills for future generations. Climate change. Apparently, all of our projects take climate mitigation and resilience into account. However, there's no visibility on this or of this. a lack of consistent data about greenhouse gas emissions, vulnerability to hazards and risks for some of our infrastructure compromises our ability to make well-informed decisions that will future-proof infrastructure and risks maladaptation. That's from the consultation document. I know staff are working on this, but I really expected to see much more work in this area now, 6 years out from 2030, so that councillors, us and the public, can weigh up projects not just on their monetary cost, but on the cost to the environment. If we can't do that, how can we make real strides towards halving our emissions by 2030? I'm now really concerned it's a pipe dream. Future generations will need to pay for our mistakes in the areas I've mentioned. We clearly have an inability to realise the true cost and to actually face up to it. I know we'll get hundreds of submissions saying the same thing, and we should be doing better. And I encourage the public to think about not just the cost of things now, but their value into the future.
Thank you, Councillor Goff.
Did you say me?
Yes, please. Sorry.
Oh, I wasn't actually planning on even speaking on this one. We're going to do the CD one afterwards, aren't we?
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
I'm happy just to wrap it up. I just want to speak once. So,
okay, that's fine.
If you
no
prefer
problem.
I go now, I can though.
Feel free, if you're ready.
I was born ready, Phil. No, look. To cut to the crux of it, I think the proposed average 13% rates rise is shameful, really, and totally unviable for residents. So, for me, that's the headline of it. We've sat through a process where drilling into the levels of service was declined to the level of detail that we wanted pre-Christmas. And a number of other councillors sat around the table and felt frustrated at that as much as I did. We also, not telling you anything you don't know, that we had staff bring $180 million worth of proposed savings that they've put forward themselves, of which only $40 million was taken up. So, I would implore residents, if they feel the way that I do, make a submission and say that. Tell the council that it's unacceptable. Tell the council where the priorities are wrong. Tell the council where there's duplication or where items are occurring that are completely unnecessary, or if there's things that the council should entirely rethink. And I think that's the exciting part of an LTP, is that it's an opportunity to look at doing things differently and reevaluate priorities and the strategy for the city. So I think there are limitless examples of that, but with limited time for me, one that I'd flag is things like gyms. Does the council need to be in the game of owning and operating gyms? Promoting fitness is great. We want healthier residents, but food's pretty important to people. But we're not in the game of owning fruit and veggie shops or supermarkets. So I just think that it's not something that is necessarily fixed in stone, or we don't need to reverse plan an outcome. But I think those sort of conversations are healthy ones to have. And when you look at gyms, I suspect that there's elements of business that the council is involved in, which are really just, historic hangovers. People will recall that there was, council owned and operated early childhood learning centres. And all of a sudden, people look back and go, well, the reason we've probably owned it for so long we do this is because we've always done it. So I think that, having conversations around things like that, when you look at gyms, for example, they're in their abundance. There's plenty of private operators that offer a service that's very, very high in the quality and of an affordable nature. And for the outcome that we want to achieve, would we be better to have a tenant-landlord relationship? Not saying it one way or another, but I think that that's a healthy conversation to have, and I think that's the beauty of a long-term plan, where you can have an honest conversation and explore all those sorts of things. So for me, look, I straight out, to not beat around the bush, I'm not going to be supporting a rates rise that's going to be over 10%, because I just don't think it's viable. So I really urge people to come to us with ideas of doing things differently and tell us where savings can be made, because for me, I just don't think that it's a viable way forward. This is the beginning of a process, not the end of it, and I welcome having an honest and open conversation with the community, so we can ensure that we have an LTP that they deserve and that's sustainable going forward.
Thank you very much. McDonald, please.
At least you didn't say old McDonald.
Yeah.
E-I-E-I-O. Well, it's good to laugh in such a depressing environment. No, no. Look, I think firstly, I just want to acknowledge every council staff member throughout this building and across the organisation who have contributed to this LTP. It's actually remiss it hasn't been mentioned yet. We've jumped straight to the negatives in this plan, and I just think it's really unfortunate sometimes when we've had the year that we've had, and we've all talked about how we should support the council staff, that actually no one's done that. So maybe that when you do your second debate, Andre, we can do that. That would be useful. The reality is, sorry, I wasn't listening. No, look, I think that there's a couple of things that are worth actually noting with this. The first one is the capital program. We unanimously agreed to deliver or to set a deliverable capital program. It's the first time that's been done across an LTP, and I think we will see dividend as a result of that. What it actually means, despite the rhetoric, is that actually we're not putting less into our infrastructure. We're actually delivering what we'll say we'll do. We have this argument every year where we set a budget and we under-deliver it significantly. So all we are doing this time round is don't let them fool you. We are not spending less. We are delivering an infrastructure program that is more transparent and accurate to the people of Christchurch. Look, I agree with people that the rates rise is far too high. I will not for a second, although I won't predetermine myself, I would struggle to support a double-digit rate rise when it comes back in June. But I think actually at the moment we need to go out and engage the public. The Mayor and I have an undertaking. We're going to be out to as many public meetings as we can, and certainly that door is open to anyone that wants to host them. Celeste and I did one last year. Actually trying to engage people. We've heard, and I think it was good this morning, we had a couple of hours on the consultation document. That's because it is so important. If people don't understand what they do, they won't have their say, and to be blunt, the same people that come in every year will tell us to either spend more or keep up what we're doing, when actually the silent majority, who we are not the only cost for them, will just get on and suck it up. I think if you're looking at 13%, I think it's actually been healthy having the Te Kaha amount separated out this year, because it shows in a 13.4% rate increase that's 2.17. We need to start communicating that to the public, because I think there's a conception out there, or a perception, that actually it is driving the whole 13%. That is not the truth. There is significant debt that sits across this organisation. The council have made a range of choices for some time, which have meant that doors quite openly have been shut. And I think there are choices that we have made that have led to this, and we all need to accept that. So we've got a time where we can go and listen to the people of Christchurch. But actually, I think at the moment, the last thing we'd want to do would be to vote down a draft plan that doesn't let the people have their say. I think it would be irresponsible for people in leadership positions to oppose a plan that they don't want to hear from the public, and I would be really surprised if people did.
Righto. Councillor Cotton.
Kia ora. Look, it has taken a long time to get here. I don't think it's been a rushed process in any way, but at the same time it feels incredibly complex. But here we are, after 18 months, we've got a draft budget that we're seeking public opinion on. But part of the process that we went through was we were able to put up amendments, selected members could put up amendments that were either adopted by majority and included in the budget, or lost by a vote to be included, or agreed to be included in the consultation document unbudgeted, for instance, the events ecosystem and climate change levy, etc. So one of my amendments that was adopted by majority, and I'm really pleased about it, was a $20 million a year, each year, fund to address the surface flooding that will of course include the issues in Edgware Village. But as a City Councillor, I supported a program that will prioritise these flood-prone areas citywide, as I know other councillors also have affected areas, and this is a fair process. So this is now included in the budget. The other amendment was around the new community centre at 10 Shirley Road, which Jake McClellan has already alluded to, being in his ward. It's already in our current long-term plan in the outer years. And since the local community board has progressed the project to such a point, I moved an amendment to bring forward $250,000 with an impact of 0.01%. It was a very close vote at 8-9, but was not supported to be in the budget. So it's now the opportunity for our supporters in the community to let us know if you support bringing this forward at a small rate increase. So you'd have to say to us, yes, I support a rate increase being brought in to cover that, or not. And then, of course, we'll need to vote on that again in June depending on what we hear. And this applies to everything in the budget. So I was pleased to see and support the many amendments around our environmental projects like sustainability, pest control, water quality, climate change mitigation, etc., all being supported as amendments. And I do encourage residents to make the submission especially great to hear supporting comments, what we are getting right. We've all worked hard to keep a rate increase as low as we can, while at the same time keeping the momentum going for Christchurch City, a city that's fast becoming the best city in New Zealand, or possibly already is. A great place to live, work, play and invest. To continue Aotautahi on this journey, we must continue to invest, but that necessitates spending appropriately, pragmatically and wisely. And as Councillor Donovan already mentioned, there are some areas of council work that if we don't spend and invest, it will cost ratepayers much, much more in the future. A future problem through lack of investment that I do not want to bear responsibility for on my shoulders. Things are not so simple as to say, don't spend. It's about balance. And the question is, have we got the balance right? Today we have a draft budget and we're open to comments. To vote against putting this out to the public today would be denying them their voice. So please support the draft today. Kia ora.
Thank you. 'Tis I. It has been a long process, but it is good to get to this point where our draft LTP is ready to go out to the public to have their say. Once Audit New Zealand has given us a green light in March. Can I thank councillors for the debate finalising this draft LTP? There are bits we all agree on, and there are some bits that we strongly have disagreement. But that's the nature of democracy. The nature of democracy is what we have. The debate, take a vote, and the outcome is decided. Then we move on to the next item. Can I also thank the whole council staff for their hard work getting us to this point? In particular, I want to acknowledge Lynn and the LTP team for their work leading this process. It hasn't been easy. We're now at a point where we send it out to the community to have their say. It's over to the people. Please have your say. It is very important. Everyone said the same thing. For me, I am very concerned at the proposed rate increase, and I'd even go further to say I'm not happy at all. And I think we still have plenty of work to do to get this down. A message I'm sure that will come through loud and clear through this consultation. Across the country, organisations and individuals are grappling with challenging economic conditions and the rising cost of living. We here at Christchurch are no different. We're facing increased is outside of control, including changes to interest, inflation, increased project capital costs, the rising cost of insurance, electricity, and higher cost to maintain our assets, and reductions to external funding. I'm well aware that the rates rise will have a big impact on people's back pocket. This is why we must balance the need to keep the cost to as low as possible while still actively delivering the core services that Christchurch wants us to. This is a constant challenge, and there are a range of views on how we manage that around the council table. 17 of us need to find a pathway forward which has the broadest support. The current draft LTP has council spending $6.2 billion on our capital projects over the next 10 years. It addresses the range of demands that our ageing infrastructure creates, while also delivering the infrastructure required to support our growing population, which is steadily increasing. Across all this work, we must manage the challenges of climate change with our existing role and balance all this with what we can realistically deliver and what the ratepayers can afford. Oh, he's talking fast. I'm glad I've got 2 shots at this. That means we are now at the point where we need to hear from the people. Do they agree with what we're proposing? Have we got the balance right? Is there anything that they think that we should defer, delay, fast track? But I do want to wrap this up on a positive note. In my mind, this is a great time of history for our city as we've come through the pandemic in a strong position. This is driven by the huge investment over the past decade to the fact that the world is seeing what a great place Christchurch is. Christchurch is to raise a family, run a business and enjoy our stunning natural environment. Once again, just saying the university has had another record enrolment. They had 23,000 people last year. They've got 6% more this year. People want to come here. So it's all good. We must both keep up the momentum in the decade to come. Our council can support this by taking care of our basics that our people, businesses and communities need to make Christchurch the blessed place to live, work, invest and play. Christchurch has delivered a staggering number of significant projects in the last 10 years. Turanga, QE2, councillors, post-Crake Road and pipe renewals, restored Town Hall. It is great to see Te Kaha rise out of the ground at pace. Similarly, the Hornby Centre and the Court Theatre are also making great progress. And Parakiori will happen. And also Te Pai, which is not ours, but we must remember that it is bringing large groups of people to our city, and it is booked out well into next year. Soon, work will be underway with the New South Library and Service Centre, along with the Otakaro-Avon River Corridor. But we know there is still much to do. You tell us each year in your annual resident survey, highlighting water, footpaths, roads as key priorities for investment. This is why it is great to see the annual budgets for footpaths go from $345,000 a year to $2 million per year starting in 26-27. I'm also particularly happy to see the new program line for addressing localised flooding issues like Brenchley Ave and Edgeworth Village, as well as other known spots. I'm committed to protecting and investing in the city we all call home, and as I've often said, this is the best place to live, work, invest and play in New Zealand. I know this because I've raised a family here, run a business here and continue to take an active role in our city. And like you, we all want our wards to succeed, but we've got to look at it, we want Christchurch to succeed. Our council is working to deliver what our council needs for success, and now we need the people alongside us as we plot out our next decade. So to the people out there, please tell us what you think. The more submissions, the merrier. Thank you very much. Right, so vote. So with that, I will put what you see up there to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Against? No. So you want to... Okay. No problem.
So this is for recommendations 3 and 4 in its entirety?
Yep.
Okay. Councillor Peters? Yes. Councillor Fields?
Yes.
Councillor Harrison-Hunt?
Yes.
Councillor Coker?
No.
Councillor Donovan? Yes. Deputy Mayor Cotter?
Aye.
Councillor Henstock?
Yes.
Councillor Moore?
No.
Councillor Goff?
Yes.
Councillor Johansson?
No.
Councillor Kewen?
Yes.
Councillor MacDonald?
Yes.
Councillor Barber?
Yes.
Councillor McLennan?
Yes.
Councillor Scundrett?
Yes.
The Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor Templeton? No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
13,
6, 7, 8,
4.
9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4 against.
Okay, so that is carried. Thank you very much. So, what's up next, 99?
Resolution 5, 6, 7,
Okay.
8, and that's the Mayor and Deputy Mayor who moved them.
So we now move on to